Welcome back, fellow knife enthusiasts, blade lovers everywhere. OG Blade Reviews with you today with, hey, guess what? A pile of small fixed blade knives. Let's take a look at them. We're going to do our very, very best to be fairly detailed as I talk about ergonomics and how the tactile feel relates to your control of the knife. Many of these are ones that I relate to that you may not necessarily relate to. None of these on the table here may suit you, but that's fine, because with this deadly dozen, I've got another deadly dozen, and I got another one after that, and another one after that, perhaps. Who knows where this madness will end? Anyway, we got to start somewhere. And what we're talking about here is 3 to 4 inch blade lengths. Those are the ones that are going to be most pocketable, most carryable on your belt, inside your waistband, or in your pocket, depending upon the size and the ergos and kind of the overall profile layout of these blades. They're from various manufacturers. Also, many of them are customs, and I realize that for many of you, customs are out of the question because they're simply too much money. I totally appreciate that. This for me is partly a user collection and partly a collection, meaning I enjoy these blades because I love the designs. I think the makers in most cases are great, and they continue to make great wares, great blades, good things for you to carry. So EDC Tactical, 3 to 4 inch is our focus. I'm not going to do any specialized TKell knives, any specialized karambit knives, and no daggers today. These are all going to be knives you can use for either or, okay? They've got a tactical influence, but they can also be used to peel a potato if you had to in the field, or prep your meal. So where do we begin? Well, I'm going to begin with the baker's dozen here, the number 13, and I've got probably another surprise on the side as well too. But this is none other than the Street Beat. I got my little crib notes on the side. Honest to God, I'm going to have some brain farts today, so bear with me. I got too many things on the table. Fred Perrin design, noted French custom and tactical knife designer and knife maker. He heavily influenced people like Baston Elli and Bastinelli blade art, tactical art, so on and so forth. This is his basic Bowie design. They now make, I think, a smaller version of this, forget the name, and they make the Street Bowie or Bowie, which is the longer version. So this is the Street Beat. This is a handy little knife. And talking about ergos, you've got indexing there for your finger. You've got a scalpel-like rounded handle. You've got a VG10 blade, not the most expensive steel, but definitely one that's going to work for you. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about blade lengths today or steels. This is about a 3.5 inch blade. And I may pull out the tape measure every now and then, but I'm in kind of a tight space here today. So no scales and no tape measure. 3.5 inches, okay? So this guy is just, for the money, one of the best. Molded handle, tough as can be. It's an FRN, I believe. Feels extremely comfortable in the hand. If you don't have a lot to spend, go no further than this knife. It is just near perfection. I would say the only thing it could use is maybe a better sheath. Spyderco tends to go very wide on their sheaths and leave a lot of room for eyelets and grommets. Going to set that one aside. We'll see if we can bring them all out in the end, but if not, then we won't. Another production knife from Tops called the El Pionero. This is a design by none other than Ed's manifesto, Ed Calderon. And this was designed to look like just a conventional, I guess, steak knife. I even brought it to a meal with me at a restaurant and nobody blinked an eye. It's a little bit different in the handle configuration here. So what we're talking about is we've got the Grim Reaper kind of, this is logo. You can barely see it on there. It's kind of cool the way they put it on there. The knife can be held conventionally with a point up, edge out. Very good size. You know, it's thick enough in the handle. Some knives aren't thick enough. They're kind of thin. And I don't like it if I've got to compromise my grip. If I can roll it up into my hand and it fills the hand without overfilling it, then that's perfect for me. This is 1095 tool steel. I don't think it's a great choice. Tops has difficulty getting away from 1095. I know they can probably heat treat it and do all that good kind of stuff in edge retention pretty well with that steel. But if you're holding this or carrying this close to your body in your pocket, you're sweating on it a lot, carry it in salty environments, it's going to rust. Okay, 1095 is not a stainless steel. But probably has some decent edge holding and is reasonably tough. Here's the cool thing about the handle ergos on this. Index for your finger, thumb capped over the top, you now have your TKell knife. Doesn't look like it could be, but it is, because now you've got your edge in for stabbing and ripping, okay? So I think it's a good all-around design. I'm glad they came out with it. It's tough. It's I think they're using micarta there. Yep, it's a woven material. And the sheath isn't half bad. The clip's a little wonky. You can slide it into your belt. Tops doesn't do a whole lot real great with clips, but you've got enough there to where you can put a DCC clip on, ulti-clip, whatever your choice is, belt strap, belt loop, what have you. I'm going to try to get through, I think, most of the factory-made knives first. Here is the TPF. I think it's named for, well, it's made by designed by Bob Truzzola. It is from MagnaCut, and I understand this MagnaCut is really up there to about HRC 64. Now, the TPF is short for Truzzola Pocket Fixed Blade. And this indeed is a smallish knife that has been really echoed from his original battle knives of the, he was making back in the 80s and 90s, I believe, that he no longer makes those fixed blades. They're really collector's items. This one happens to be from carbon fiber, but there are at least 5 or 6 other handle materials, including some fat carbon fiber handles that are really cool as well. Really not enough here that you'd want to sharpen that top swedge, although you could. And given the fact that this is blade length is probably legal in many jurisdictions, it's like 3.5 inches cutting edge, then it's likely that you should be able to carry that in your pocket or your belt or wherever it's allowed. Comes with this 2-directional leather sheath. The problem being, there's a magnet here. Problem being, this is supposed to slide down in your pocket. Magnet locks it onto your pocket to a degree. And then you go to pull it out and the whole sheath comes out. It's just too snug, and I've really worked this thing in too. So what I did instead was pick this up from the knife center. And this is supposedly a Kydex sheath that fits the knife. But this also is unfortunately kind of an abomination, hate to say it, for a beautiful, beautiful knife by MKM in Italy and designed by Bob Truzzola. You would think that they would give you a better sheath, but the fit is just really loose. It's kind of careless. We've got a big fat lip up here. I may redo the sheath, reheat it, with a heat gun, get it to fit a little bit better, maybe cut some of this down. It's way bigger than it needs to be, that thumb push off. And then I might end up with a way to carry this beauty, but it's got some nice ergos to it, fairly neutral, not a lot of sculpting on the handle there. It is a fatter handle that gives you a pretty good grip, I would say. And it's just about long enough to be really useful, either for EDC or for tactical get off me defensive work. That's a term that TKELL likes to use. Get off me knife. We talked about TKELL. Let's talk about the great and famous TKELL. This, I believe, is the Nighthawk. I'm going to check my list once again because I have a number of TKELL's knives, and they all start with Night something or other. So I'm going to get you the proper name for this guy. It is the, got my list here, as you can see. It is the, come on, I believe it's a Nighthawk. If I'm wrong, I know you guys that are TKELL collectors will tell me about it. But it's not the Nightshade, it's the Nighthawk. This is the Tonto version. I believe there's also a drop point version. I have this out on the table also as the only ringed knife with a ring on the handle. Not a karambit, but a ringed knife. And I'm not a big fan of rings on knives that aren't karambits because they need to be offset. This is pretty much an exception because you can encompass that whole ring into your hand if you choose, or you can use it as a persuader here. This is particular one is from EDC V2. He does make a variety of different steels. I'm not going to be able to leave links to all of these knives, but I will name all the knives that showed up in this review, and you should be able to web search them and find sources for them. But it is quite sharp. It is quite stout. It is a piercing knife. It's a tough knife. You can use this for many things. I generally speaking like the handle. It's not perfect for my hand, but as I said, this is not about what's best for you. This is about different varieties of small 3 to 4 inch knives that you can carry and use and are extremely useful in tight situations as well as everyday use. I will point out that on every single one of Tim's knives, you have this notched thumb ramp, which is perhaps the best push-off system and the best Kydex sheath in the industry. He just does a fantastic job. Now, Tim's knives are said to be custom. I know there's a lot of production involved. You could call them mid-tech, you could call them production, but he does so much hand work on sharpening them and finishing them up that I would say, they're a production level custom knife. And they don't all stick around. They're not always available off the shelf. So that much certainly does make them custom. This is a brown kind of wood burl G10. And it's a very popular handle material, of which he has dozens of handle materials. Since we're talking about Tim, here is the latest and greatest that came out from TKELL Knives. And a very good friend of mine by the name of Bob DeMarco was responsible for co-designing this and collaborating on it with TKELL. This is, as you may know, the Agent 001. And it's made in both EDC V2 and AEBL. This one, I believe, is in AEBL. This is one provided for review by Tim. And, you get what you get sometimes. Beggars can't be choosers. This one's got a blue layered black and blue, I'm not sure the exact name of this, G10. The design, I think, it really comes very close to perfection for me, with these finger grooves, fit the hands beautifully, works tremendously in Pikal. If you want to hold it point down, edge in, you've got that top edge. The knife also comes in a single edge with just an unsharpened spine. And if you look really carefully, you can see that it's got a little bit of a clip there. Very hard to see. It looks like it's just rounded, but this is straight and then that clips down. That, of course, is a really nice gradual belly. So you can definitely use this knife for chores, for tasks, for prepping food, anything that kind of comes your way. And some very deep and aggressive jimping here. When I say aggressive, it's not sharp, not going to cut you. It's bumpy, if anything. And you've got some tremendous sharpening choils. And that is a real bonus as well. We've got a nickel boron finish on both of those knives I showed you, the Nightshade, or the Nighthawk rather, and the Agent 001. Very slick stuff, and it's got a hardness and it bonds to the metal of about 70 on the surface. So very hard to wear that stuff off. Everything wears off over time, but really hard to say when, if ever, this finish would ever come right down to the steel, except, of course, where the sharpened bevel is. Extremely ergo-friendly knife. I like it. My only qualm about it, if I'm to get picky, is I'd like to see a little higher handle. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a moment. And here's another fine example of that jimped ramp I was telling you about. Here is perhaps my most favorite knife ergonomically and tactically and usefully over the past few months. And that's not to cast any disparagement upon anything on the table. They're all tremendous knives. That's why they're out here. But this is by the Viper Knife Company. And this is a design by Fabrizio Silvestrelli, a very well-known Italian knife designer. This knife, you can't feel what I'm feeling right now, but this thing, because of the contouring, because of the ribs, because of the height and the outline here, just melts into your hand. And there's a lot of bonuses. Weight relieving. You do not see that on very many factory knives. You seldom see it on custom knives. Tapered tang. Yes. I can't tell you when the last time I saw a tapered tang was. It had to have been on a custom knife from the 80s, where that was really becoming a thing. That balances the knife, so it's not handle heavy. Some of these are handle heavy, a little bit too much so. Crowned spine all the way along the tang. And Magna Cut at around 62 HRC, I am told. So, I mean, what's not to like with this knife? It is just what's not to love. And it does come with the double scout carry straps. You can remove one strap. You can loop one through your belt and carry it inside the pants. There's also room here if you take these completely off to put a DCC clip on or any other sort of belt attachment that you happen to like. Stonewash finish on this one comes in a number of finishes, including black, stonewashed, and satin. Number of different handle materials. Obviously, this is Ultim. This is my second one. First one was in fat carbon with the satin blade. Had to get a second one. They're just too good. They're just too good. And this was from White Mountain Knives. If you check out the Viper Handy, and if I didn't mention the name, that's what it is, Handy. Not a very ominous sounding name. It is not sharpened here, which I find is good because sometimes I like to stretch my thumb all the way out there. Okay, so this just bonds to the hand. This becomes such a usable knife. It's incredible. That is the Viper Handy. And I'll be about an hour long here if I don't move along. Next one is Hogtooth, and this is a design called the Nova 1. This was a gift to me from Bob DeMarco for a recent birthday. Bob, again, I thank you so much, and I will not sell or give away anything that has been gifted to me, particularly for an occasion like that. So this is the Nova 1, and Nova stands for Northern Virginia. And that was Bob's kind of thumbing his nose at a lot of the restrictive knife laws in his area in North Virginia where he lives. But here's a good example of a knife that I've had to learn to like in terms of the way the handle fits me. As you can see, the handle is just barely long enough, and a lot of people like that. I realize that. They don't want anything hanging out over there. I like enough left over so that I've got at least that much showing, and that seems like a very little bit, but I can get my pinky on there and it feels like it's got purchase. So this is a beautiful knife with a recurve 154 cm steel, sharp as the dickens, stout with a really nice thumb platform and jimping there, heavily stonewashed, black stonewashed, and with a beautiful burgundy, shiny micarta on it, with these excellent, this millwork or really file work. Matt Chase, I think, is, if I'm correct on that, is the maker at Hogtooth Knives. And there is a Nova 2 coming out that's going to be in a Wharncliffe style blade. And I'm looking forward to seeing that one soon too. But I will tell you, this sort of makes me want to hold it this way, kind of like some of the Kaikens for the thrust. And I can sort of jack it back if I'm going to do push cuts. But in my hand, I'm emphasizing that again, in my hand, it's not perfect for me. Not perfect. It means I don't like it? No, absolutely not. I'll keep emphasizing that. What else have we got? Oh my goodness, I'm going to take a short break here and come back. Oh, that was a long enough break. Why don't we jump into a budget knife? Since a lot of these are pricey, we're talking $200–300 for some of these blades you've seen so far. Now, this is the Waxahachi from Sencut, a Wii knife company with Civivi as their budget and this as the lowest budget tier. I got to tell you, for the money, an excellent, excellent knife. A little bit heavy in the handle, but look at how they've lightened it with all those holes that go straight through. I don't usually like these big perforations, but in this case, it definitely works to lighten that handle up. Got a provision for a lanyard. This one happens to be green micarta. And we've got a really nice clip point blade on that with a little bit of a rise there, almost getting to be a harpoon, but not really quite. Extremely useful, high flat grind. Budget steel on it. It's 9C RMOV, decent budget steel, stainless steel. And also happens to come with a sheath that is very nicely done, thick Kydex. And nice push off there, even though it isn't jimped or have any special features. It's just a nice rise in the sheath there that allows you to pop it off. Moving over just a bit. Oh, I believe this is called the 032 or 033. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm so sorry. But I think I've got it handy here. This is an Aaron Bieber knife. And that is the AB Knives in MagnaCut Tsukamaki wrap 302. I knew I was close with the 3 and the 0. 302. Got this after seeing the one Bob DeMarco had picked up. What a beautiful little knife. A little tough getting it off. One challenge with the Tsukamaki wrap is getting the sheath to mold to it and still be able to pull it out fairly easily. It tends to be kind of grabby, but that also means, oh, camera shaking, also means that you're not going to lose it accidentally. Look at that. For a knife that's only 7¼ inches long with a 3½ inch blade. It's amazing. Look at that. The whole thing just can be swallowed up into your hand. I don't feel as though my hand's coming off of this one. Notice I've got that itty bitty little amount left over there. That's what I'm looking for, because it just gives that pinky finger the feeling that it's not falling off the end. And I can square up my grip, because in Filipino martial arts that I practice, we like to use these sideways thrusts. You can jab forward with it, no problem. You can cut just about any kind of utility work with this knife. The flat grind goes all the way up to the top. We got a pretty little hollowed swedge there. It's hard to see, but it's hollowed. And this is what he calls his deep finish. It's heavily stone washed, and I think he does some kind of a acid etch on it to get the black there. Again, we're talking about Magna Cut up around 63, 64 here, according to Aaron. Aaron is a custom knife maker. This is 100% custom, and it's going to run you up there over 3. So what can I say? You either have the bread and want to lay it out for it because you're getting an exceptional knife, or you're going to say, nope, it doesn't have the drop factor. My old martial arts teacher used to say the knife's got to have a drop factor. You drop it and lose it. You got to be able to accept that, not spend the rest of your life regretting it. Beautiful swale there for the thumb. So no matter how you hold this, whether you go way to hell up like that or back here, this knife just holds beautifully. That is the 302 by AB Knives, Aaron Bieber. Really nice carbon fiber finish Kydex sheath on that one. Where am I at now? Well, let me just finish on the end here. This was sort of a toss-in at the end because it's over 4 inches. It's about a 4½ inch knife. This is the UCAP, Up Close and Personal. And this is made by RMJ Tactical down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Again, it's what you would call a mid-tech, really, hand put together, but CNC'd knife. Beautiful Bowie shape on this knife. Now I say Bowie shape, it's not a Bowie knife, guys. I mean, someone wrote me once and said a Bowie knife's got to be so and such long, and here's the requirements for it, and so on and so forth. Maybe Jim Bowie laid that out when he asked to have the knife made for him. I think it was a relative, his brother or somebody made the knife for him. I'm not sure. But I know you'll correct me on that if I'm wrong. This is another one where I wish I had just a little longer handle. Now, the advantage of a shorter handle is that it's not going to poke you in the ribs when you're carrying it around underneath your belt or inside your waistband. So I get that. And it's nice that it's rounded, so it's not going to stick into your palm, all right? In fact, if you want to palm it like James Williams does with his Kaikens and his Tontos, you don't need a guard. And you'll see in a minute when I show you the Williams knife, the Kaiken, the mini Kaiken, I'm going to show you that it has no guard. So a lot of people say, what am I going to do with no guard? Don't have a stop. Well, your stop is your hand if you hold it this way. Anyway, about 4½ inches on this, so it really falls a little out of the range I wanted to show today. 4¼ Overall, 8¼ So we're not far out of the range. Real tall blade, nice tall handle, some beautiful texturing cut in here. And these come in a number of handle colors. This one was a special edition with that ridged millwork on the blade there. They do that every now and then on some of the RMJ knives. Nice fuller here, almost makes it look kind of like a military K-bar, like a short version of that. And all of their sheaths are excellent. You can see the platform there for the mount of the clip. And of course, again, you can switch any of this stuff out if it doesn't suit you. Nice tight fitting sheath, love it. Where are we at? Well, we're on to auxiliary manufacturing fellow by the name of Michael Jarvis, who hand makes these knives in Nevada, Reno, Nevada, I believe. This is called the Karl Jr. because there is a Karl Sr. They don't call it that. But that's the 4-inch version. This is the 3-inch version. This is, again, such a perfect small knife that holds big. All right, 3-inch blade and a longer handle. So you see that bird's beak on the handle there. My pinky fits perfectly under that. If you want to go into pakal with this, it is absolutely perfect for pakal, pikal, whatever you like to call that. My style, we call it pakal, but that's probably just the romanization of the Tagalog name. Anyway, this one is from 3V, I believe. I'm going to say 3V. It's either 3V or it's Nitro V. Got a couple others that are Magna Cut. As far as I know, this is not Magna Cut. Well, long vid, and I had a few interruptions, but talking again about the Karl Jr. from Auxilliary Manufacturing in Reno, Nevada. This one has a really beautiful fat carbon fiber, black fat carbon fiber. I'm not sure the exact name of this carbon fiber, but it's kind of what turned me on to the knife. The contouring here was well thought out. You do end up with your middle finger, at least on my hand, over that bump in the middle, which does not feel uncomfortable at all. In fact, it creates kind of a palm swell for your fingers there. But solid knife. He left it thick enough through here that you don't feel like you're squeezing something thin that you can't quite get your hand solidly around. And he finishes it off with this rock pattern on the spine, which I think he didn't need to do, but it certainly adds to the aesthetics of the knife. Karl Jr. Sorry about that. Oh, where are we now? Well, we're going to move up to Compliance Edge, newly discovered knife company by me. No, I didn't discover them. They were out long before I knew about them. But trying to think of the gentleman's name there that runs it. Tip of my tongue. But anyway, Greek first name, as far as I know. Here is the DCK. He has the, I believe, DCR with a ring and the DCK without it. Grabbed this one because I'm a sucker for the gray G10, and he happened to turn out this batch, guess it was coming close to a year and a half ago or so, with the bronze Cerakote on it. Since then, he's come out with all sorts of flavors and colors of this particular knife, and quite a few other designs as well. This one is, again, nearly the perfect fighter, and it's probably a little over the limit. Yeah, it's 4 1/4 also, so I'm not really holding true to what I'm saying about 3 to 4 inch knives, but 4 1/4, can we say close enough for government work? I don't work for the government. He puts a mirror edge on this blade. It's incredible. This is 3V, of that I'm certain. And that is one tough and durable steel. It's a very popular steel with many of those of you out there carrying tactical and defense-related knives, because it's just going to hold up and going to take a beating. Point, little on the thin side there, but is it piercy? Oh my God, is it piercy? It is crazy piercy. You don't need to do anything. And it cuts too. What do you know? Heavy jimping up here, heavy jimping on the pommel. People have looked at that and said, I don't like the knife because it's going to chew up my thumb. Hey, guess what? Hasn't chewed up my thumb yet. Because these are all, although you've got deep valleys in there, these shoulders here are all, I guess you would call it radiused, rounded. They're not sharp. They're not. You've got purchase on it. You've got non-slippability. And when you hold it in PKELL, which it's perfectly designed for because of that inner edge. And these come in a single edge as well, if you can't have two edges. Perfect PKELL knife. I mean, nothing feels more perfect than this for point down, edge in. Just amazing. And yet handles extremely well in the point up, edge out position as well. Feels a little heavier. I'm not sure he's using any weight relieving in the handle. Handle on some of knives feel a little dead because you've got too much weight in the handle. I like a balance, and you don't often get that. That doesn't make this bad. It's certainly not a showstopper for me with this particular knife. And again, he makes this in a kind of a carbon fiber weave pattern on the Kydex. That leaves us where, folks? Oh my God, we got 2 left. How did I do it? I think we actually ended up with 14 knives, although I'm calling it a dozen. So it's a baker's dozen. Baker's dozen baker. Williams knives. These are made by Lion Steel in Italy. This particular one is Sleipner steel. And I can't give you all the background on the Sleipner steel, but it is kind of another semi-stainless steel as far as I know. Has good edge retention and good hardness. That's about as much as I can tell you about Sleipner. Look it up, and there's plenty of knife charts out there. We'll tell you more about it. Here is the example of where we have a stick-like neutral, totally neutral handle. Okay? And yes, so you heard me complaining before about the handles, but I've got just that little bit there for my hand, and it feels fine. This also comes in a 4.5-inch version they just came out with in Magna Cut, and that one's going for about $290, which ain't bad, and that's also made by Lion Steel. This is your mini Kaiken style knife. It is an older style knife that James Williams kind of pulled out of the past, where we've got this transition right here, which you would normally call an Americanized tanto, except the transition is here, straight edge, and then a gradual upsweep and an incredibly long and piercing point that isn't at all overly fine. And yet it is a piercer. Absolutely. You can hold this knife in any position you would like. This screw right here is raised and referred to as the Emperor node. I think that's what they're calling it. So that if you're used to feeling for where that is, you're going to know where the edge is, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. In the right hand, the middle finger touches that, and you know you're holding it this way. If you change it to this position, now it's still there in the point down, okay? So perfect for PKELL, perfect for sock, or what we call point up, edge out in the Filipino arts. And then we've got a really nice micarta going on here, and it is clamshelled onto the tang and held in place with 3 screws. Tang goes all the way up at least to here, maybe even further. Not entirely sure. If you must know, where's my magnet? Yep, that goes right to the end. I'm still getting a draw on that, right out to the pommel. So very strong construction. Excellent sheath, good thick Kydex. Speaking of good thick Kydex, here is Bastinelli. This is, I believe, USA made now, and I know Tactile Knives in Texas is making a lot of the Bastinelli knives and doing a beautiful job on them, because this is their M390, and in the past the Italian-made knives were made in N690. Bastinelli sheaths are typically thin, and they're not soft, they don't move around too much, but they tend to be just a little bit loose. And they're not my favorite sheaths. If you love the knife, and I do, you can certainly have a custom sheath made for it or make one yourself. This is the Foreigner, and this is an M390, as I mentioned, probably next to the Handy and the Agent 001, one of the most ergonomic knives on the table. Another instance where we just barely have that little 1/4 inch hanging out. If I hold it in cross palm, this would be really well, this is hammer grip, okay? This is more your saber grip. Saber grip in line with the forearm for thrusting. It's a short blade. It is very light. 3.5 inches. Overall, 7.25 to almost 7.5, somewhere in that range. And just light and very easy to maneuver. Hit the camera again. Sorry for all that shaking around. Make sure I put my motion stabilization on, even though I'm on a tripod here. This is his very famous blade profile that he uses on like the Assault Calypse and a number of his folders, the Shadow folder and many others, the Safe folder. And it's, you could call it probably a sheep's foot, or you could call it a Sax, S-E-A-X style blade. Not sure which would be closer, but so comfortable. What you see here that looks kind of odd with the scoops out everywhere, that just becomes like putty in your hand. It's incredible. If you have one of these, you know what I mean. If you don't, it's going to be maybe hard to, to really feel it. And, trying to feel these knives that are here on the table in front of my camera, and you've not picked one up, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to figure that out. But that's, and there, I should say, they all are. Give me one final test here and see if I can name them all. So we've got the Bastinelli Foreigner. We've got the Agent 001 from TKell Knives. We've got the Nighthawk from TKell Knives. We've got the Viper Handy from Viper Knives. We've got the Mini Kaiken from Willians Knives. We've got the Nova 1 from Hogtooth Knives. We've got the Compliance Edge DCK. We've got the Auxilliary Manufacturing Karl Jr. We've got the Waxahachi from Sencut. We've got the TPF from MKM Knives, Trezola design. And we've got the 302 from AB Knives, Aaron Bieber. We've got the UCAP from RMJ Tactical. We got the Street Beat from Spyderco. And we've got the Pionero, El Pionero, from, which means pioneer, by the way, from Tops Knives, designed by Ed Calderon. Ta-da! Let me know what you think. And don't forget to leave comments and like this video if you would, and subscribe if you haven't already. OG Blade, signing out.